You've heard that masturbation is completely normal, but how much and how many times a day can you masturbate without being considered an addiction? What if you don't stop? Let's answer these questions and think about why you should stop this behavior that seems normal today. But there is a trap lurking in your life. Before we start, sorry for the pretentious cover, but I needed to draw your attention to this 21st century problem that is weakening and damaging all young people and adults and making us lose willpower. In this video, you will understand what is happening to our brain scientifically and philosophically, and what the Stoics teach us about this vice. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss anything. Let's get started. Current medical science is pretty sure that masturbation is completely normal, not only in humans but also in dogs and other mammals. But this view of normal masturbation was not always so. In the past, masturbating was thought to be immoral, especially in men, because unproductive seed production prevented people from reproducing. In the case of women, it was believed that masturbation could distance them from men by finding pleasure on their own, and without assistance to this moral burden was added the physical burden stating that masturbation caused diseases, so it was not advisable to practice it at all. But let's return to the present. What do we know about masturbation, especially for men suffering from insomnia? What is known is that it induces sleep. The French Institute of Health and Medical Research concluded that the male brain deactivates sexual desire after orgasm. The cerebral cortex, the area responsible for conscious thought, goes to rest once the man reaches climax. This, in addition to nullifying the desire to continue having sexual relations, facilitates sleep. Therefore, many men fall asleep after sexual activity. But what is the problem? So what is wrong? Well, hidden in one of its benefits is a trap. And if you frequent this channel, you will see what I am talking about. Masturbation releases dopamine in your brain. This hormone is responsible for making us feel better, providing calm relief from stress reduction and a sense of reward. This is caused by dopamine and is so pleasurable that some people become addicted. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders incorporated hypersexuality disorder. This classifies excessive masturbation under the category of obsessive-compulsive disorder, another vice that leads to mental and also familial destruction. In many cases, you won't be able to control yourself and you become a slave to yourself, a victim of lack of control, thus seeking relationships with prostitutes, sex with multiple people, and as we saw in a previous video, excessive consumption of pornography. These are ways that a dopamine-saturated brain finds to obtain pleasure. Pay attention. Addiction to masturbation comes from chemicals released in the brain, and as our brain adapts to the release of these, it feels the need to continually find the codes that generated the stimulation. Your brain will start asking for more and more dopamine to achieve the same pleasure it had the first time, making you always have to keep looking for how to masturbate again. This reaches an exaggerated point when your brain realizes that the release of dopamine is excessive and begins to block receptor in an attempt to stop you. As a result, the person performs the pleasure act, in this case masturbates, but gets nothing, which frustrates them more than they already were. Excessively masturbating to satisfy that hunger for pleasure is exactly what a smoker who never stops someone who eats chocolate until vomiting, or even an alcoholic does. At this point, you must be wondering what Stoicism has to do with this. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Panis of RHS. Masters of self-control and wisdom, addressed the view of pleasure and lust from a unique perspective. From the words of Epictetus to the intimate thoughts of Seneca, they explored the depths of human passions, a legacy that still captivates us for the Stoics. Masturbation was not just a quest for carnal satisfaction, but an opportunity to explore the limits of the body and mind. They saw it as an exercise in self-awareness and a path to true freedom in their philosophy. Mastery over worldly passions and pleasures was a conquest that elevated the human spirit. Epictetus asserted that it is not nights of pleasure but self-control that distinguishes a good man in this context. The ability to enjoy pleasure while understanding and containing it makes a difference in someone who has reached a higher level of self-awareness. Instead of being slaves to our desires, we must be their masters, as Seneca reminds us with his philosophical perspective. Stoic reflection on masturbation is not simply about repression, but deep understanding and self-mastery. This translates into the ability to direct our emotions toward a journey of conscious self-explanation. It resides not only in momentary satisfaction, but in understanding, accepting, and embracing our deepest inclinations. From the Stoic perspective, every action has consequences not only for us, but also for the natural order of the universe. When we succumb to our most intense desires, as in the case of uncontrolled masturbation, we lose that harmonious connection with nature highly valued by the Stoics. We become prisoners of our desires, drifting away from the Stoic perspective. Every action has consequences not only for us, but also for the natural order of the universe. When we succumb to our most intense desires, as in the case of uncontrolled masturbation, we lose that harmonious connection with nature, highly valued by the Stoics. We become prisoners of our desires, drifting away from true inner serenity. Compulsive masturbation can trigger an emotional whirlwind within us, where guilt, shame, and dissatisfaction become constant companions. The Stoics teach us to control our intense emotions through perspection and self-regulation. By consciously facing our emotions, we learn to manage them healthily and constructively. However, the Stoics encourage us to find inner peace within ourselves. True satisfaction lies in our self-mastery and our ability to find joy in what is simple and virtuous. Allow me to share a personal inspirational story. I know someone who used to struggle with compulsive masturbation, seeking momentary refuge and pleasure, but facing an emotional storm after each act. Immersing themselves in Stoic teachings and practicing self-control and self-regulation, this person underwent a profound transformation. They learned to confront their desires and emotions, consciously finding true joy and self-control. They now live a life of inner peace and authenticity, free from the slavery of momentary desires. True satisfaction comes from living in accordance with our deepest principles and values. When we yield to fleeting desires, we lose sight of what we truly value in life. Compulsive masturbation can distance us from our noblest purposes and veer us away from the true happiness found in virtue and inner peace. By practicing meditation and mindfulness, we can promote the mental serenity needed to resist temptations and face our emotions healthily. This compulsion becomes an obstacle to mental serenity, dragging us into regrets and steering us away from the peaceful peace found in self-control and moderation. In the philosophy of Stoicism, one of the most fundamental principles is the mastery of the self. The Stoics teach that we must distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. External events, other people, circumstances, these are outside of our control. But our own actions, thoughts, and responses, these are fully ours to command. Masturbation, like many vices, plays on the mind's weakness, its susceptibility to temptation. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, emphasized the need to develop strength of will and discipline over these impulses. To indulge in masturbation without thought or reflection is to give in to a fleeting pleasure at the expense of long-term mastery over oneself. Epictetus would remind us that every time we give in to a desire, we are training ourselves in that very behavior. In his teachings, he often used the analogy of habit as a weight. With each indulgence, the weight becomes heavier, more difficult to lift. If you consistently choose to act on impulse, you are reinforcing a path that will be increasingly hard to break away from. Stoicism teaches that by practicing restraint and discipline, we can break free from the chains of our desires. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, spoke extensively about the importance of controlling one's desires. In his Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Marcus would advise that indulging in any fleeting pleasure, like masturbation, is a momentary satisfaction that leads to long-term dissatisfaction. He would counsel you to rise above it, to understand that the pleasure it offers is temporary, but the power it takes away from you is lasting. Masturbation can be viewed through the lens of Stoicism as something that weakens your control over your mind. Each time you give in to the urge, you're teaching yourself that you don't have full dominion over your thoughts or actions. You are, in essence, allowing something external, an impulse, a fleeting desire, to dictate your behavior. But Stoicism is not about abstaining from life or renouncing all pleasure. It's about understanding that pleasure, when unchecked, can become a tyrant. The Stoics didn't believe that pleasure was inherently evil, but they did caution against allowing it to rule you. When pleasure begins to dictate your actions, you lose your ability to think rationally and act according to virtue. Masturbation, when it becomes a habit or compulsion, fits into this framework. It distracts from the higher pursuits of life: wisdom, self-control, and virtue. In Epictetus's Discourses, he reminds us that freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. When we indulge in behaviors like masturbation, we hand over a part of our freedom. We become slaves to our desires, reacting to base impulses rather than acting from a place of reason and virtue. True freedom, the kind Stoicism advocates, comes from mastery over oneself. It's important to understand that the Stoics didn't advocate for repression or guilt when it came to natural human desires. They believed in acknowledgement and rational management of these desires. Stoicism encourages you to observe the urge when it arises, to feel it fully without judgment, and then to let it pass. This practice, known as apatheia, not to be confused with apathy in the modern sense, means reaching a state where your emotions and desires no longer disturb your peace of mind. When you feel the urge to masturbate, instead of acting on it immediately, Stoicism teaches that you should pause, reflect, and remind yourself of your higher purpose. Seneca, another renowned Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively on the dangers of overindulgence in pleasures. He said that pleasure is a lure, we must flee it, or it will enslave us. By this he meant that our pursuit of immediate gratification often blinds us to the long-term consequences of our actions. Masturbation, when done habitually and without thought, can lead to a cycle where the mind becomes more focused on the pursuit of pleasure rather than on growth, self-improvement, or the pursuit of wisdom. The Stoic path offers a way out of this cycle. It's a path that demands vigilance, mindfulness, and a willingness to confront discomfort. Rather than succumbing to the urge, you can practice what the Stoics called prosocia, the art of attention. This means paying close attention to your thoughts and impulses, understanding them for what they are, and choosing how to respond rather than reacting automatically. A key tenet of Stoicism is to live according to nature, but not in the way that might justify giving in to every natural impulse. Living in accordance with nature, as the Stoics saw it, means living in accordance with reason. Humans, unlike animals, possess the unique ability to reason, to choose how they respond to their impulses. Masturbation, then, becomes a test of this ability. Do you act on impulse, like an animal driven by instinct, or do you act according to reason, understanding the fleeting nature of the pleasure and choosing not to be dominated by it? For the Stoics, every action is an opportunity to practice virtue. The next time the urge to masturbate arises, see it as a chance to cultivate discipline. It's an opportunity to practice temperance, one of the cardinal virtues of Stoicism. Temperance, or self-control, is the ability to govern and restrain your desires and impulses. By practicing temperance, you strengthen your character and your ability to act in alignment with your values, rather than being swayed by fleeting desires. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to act according to virtue, even in the face of temptation or difficulty. He would write, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" Applying this to the context of masturbation, you could ask yourself, is this action necessary for my well-being? Does this align with my higher purpose? More often than not, the answer will be no. And in that moment, you have a choice, either to give in to a passing urge or to cultivate the inner strength that Stoicism teaches. There's another important concept in Stoicism that applies here: ataraxia, or peace of mind. Stoicism teaches that true happiness and tranquility come from within, from mastering one's thoughts and emotions. When you rely on external pleasures, like the fleeting release of masturbation, for your sense of happiness, you place your peace of mind in something beyond your control. The pleasure will pass, and often it will leave a sense of emptiness or dissatisfaction in its wake. The more you rely on it, the less stable your inner peace becomes. Stoicism encourages you to seek happiness not in external things, but in the cultivation of virtue. The joy that comes from living in accordance with reason and virtue is far more enduring than the temporary satisfaction of any physical pleasure. By resisting the urge to masturbate, you're not just exercising control over a single action, you're reinforcing your ability to live a life grounded in virtue, to maintain peace of mind, and to focus on what truly matters. The Stoics also spoke of the importance of building habits that serve your higher purpose. If masturbation has become a habit, it can be difficult to break. But Stoicism offers a method for change. Instead of trying to quit all at once, focus on small daily victories. Each time you resist the urge, you're building the habit of self-control. Over time, these small victories add up, and what once seemed like an insurmountable challenge becomes something you handle with ease. Another aspect of Stoicism that can help in this process is the concept of memento mori, remembering that you will die. This may seem morbid at first, but it's actually a powerful motivator for living a meaningful life. When you're tempted to engage in masturbation, remind yourself of the brevity of life. Ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my limited time? In the grand scheme of things, the momentary pleasure of masturbation pales in comparison to the fulfillment of living in alignment with your values and pursuing your true potential. The Stoic philosopher, Musonius Rufus, one of the lesser-known figures of the Stoic tradition, emphasized the importance of self-discipline in all areas of life. He believed that true freedom comes not from indulging our desires, but from mastering them. When you have control over your desires, you're not swayed by external circumstances. You can move through life with confidence, knowing that you are in command of your own actions. By applying Stoic principles to the challenge of overcoming masturbation, you're not just addressing a single behavior. You're cultivating a mindset that will serve you in all areas of life. Stoicism teaches that every challenge is an opportunity to grow in virtue, to strengthen your will, and to develop greater self-mastery. The process of overcoming the urge to masturbate is a microcosm of the Stoic journey itself, a constant practice of reflection, self-discipline, and the pursuit of wisdom. Ultimately, the Stoics believed that the good life is one lived in accordance with nature and reason. To live well is to live virtuously, to act in harmony with your higher self rather than being driven by impulses or desires. By resisting the urge to masturbate, you're not denying yourself pleasure. You're choosing a life of greater fulfillment, one where you are the master of your mind and body rather than being mastered by them. My friend, what are you doing with your life? Do you think sitting at home and watching those videos and taking pleasure with your hands can make you confident and successful? And do you think wasting your time and energy on those bullshit can attract women? Or if you're a woman, then do you also think you can attract men? No, never so, my friend. Think wisely. And I want you to write in the comment that I'm a powerful person. I have control over my mind. I choose to do what motivates me. I choose to do what improves me. Thanks for staying with me. You can like the video and subscribe for more.